warned you about this, but since we have such an interactive conversation in terms of questions, I'm watching this HBO series called The Gilded Age, and I find it very interesting because it's a story about transition of money and power and prestige in New York. And I think we've seen this in movies in Europe, like The Gattopardo, a movie showing aristocracy and bourgeoisie fighting in Italy. So could it be that in the global financial sector, we're seeing some of this new wealth coming from here? Because if you remember a few years ago, there was like a resistance from banks and investment bankers, particularly to look into crypto or others. But now we see some of the largest managers who are looking more into it. So isn't this creating even more of a market in the future with part of the old money moving into the new money?
Already, it's a SEC decision in the United States. And this tell you can use part of crypto asset like part in your investment. And BlackRock, the biggest investment fund, already put more than $7 billion in this investment in crypto. It's a new market. And it's a market, a financial market for the native digital people. They understand more like us this new world. And they stay the life in virtual maybe half a day.
I mean, how do we manage this Gilded Age?
The Gilded Age, is a particular outgrowth of Industrial Revolution development that distorted society, and the shows you mentioned are all about distortions on one side of society. The Dickens books are about, I guess, the other end of that distortion. It's the same problems. You have those problems every time some kind of a new thing comes along, right? So in this case, I don't think that digital assets are causing that large of a dislocation like the invention of the steam engine. It's not going to completely force everybody to move from the countryside to the cities and start working in factories. That's changes every possible aspect of society. But the traditional financial system didn't know how to deal with these things. Parts of it have learned, parts of it don't learn, parts of it don't want. There's resistance. There will be new sources of wealth, new methods of solving age-old financial problems. I mean, the idea that you can pay someone at a distance is a financial problem that we've been addressing forever, right? That goes back. Middle Ages, certainly the circuit of payment meetups, whatever, around Central
The
Europe.
Rothschilds, made a fortune on that.
It's that even before the Medici Bank financing trade within whatever Alpine societies. These are long-term problems that be solved in different ways. There will be wealth that appears in some areas. There will be problems that appear in others. And at a high level, the stakeholders in this project are the parts of the public and private sectors that have historically had to deal with these problems. I mean, everywhere in the world, the police are somehow involved in crypto asset something, because of course they are. That's a group that's always been involved in managing these types of transitions. Financial regulators. If somebody wants to use these products for something related to real estate, something like the land registry. These are always people who are part of the way society changes when new stuff appears, new forms of interaction become pervasive. You deal with that, right? People know intellectually how to deal with that. This is about practically bringing together the information and the tools that are needed to make progress on those traditional hard problems. I mean, we, to some extent, addressed some of the Gilded Age issues. Policies were introduced all over the world for income tax and VAT and all sorts of
including for the internet, right? Now with Ukraine, Starlink and others. Now we discovered that you can have satellite internet in case you paid for it in a specific region.
Yeah, I mean, that's... People use the technology to solve traditional problems. The same problems keep coming up, and we deal with them in similar ways, and we move forward. The idea that you're going to use an educational collaboration to address how society manages new tools, that's always the way this has worked. We're just applying this known model with a group of aligned stakeholders to build this correctly going forward and solve sort of practical problems that people have today or problems they expect to start to have more soon. I mean, however much economic interaction the NFT marketplace has, that will grow, and eventually that will start to touch more parts of society. That's the way this stuff always goes. The traditional financial system, parts will want, will adapt, will not adapt. Again, that's like everything else. Car makers, boat makers, horse saddle producers, right? This is an age-old story of how some things adapt, some don't, some co-op, some change, some develop. You have to be prepared for that, be agile, be educated, be prepared.
Yesterday at the event, we spoke one of the panels about highways for drones,
Yes.
right? How the world is changing. Speaking of your horse from the previous story, now we're talking about drones and so on.
it's a new life for everybody. For us, it's a new life and it's a new technology. For young people, for children, it's their life. And you talk about using in the different way. In Ukraine, they have 1 year ago an NFT collection to find money to buy drones.
Of course, when
Yes.
there's a will, there's a way, right? And we use the technology as a tool.
And the war from Ukraine present us a new face of the war with drones. And highway to drones, yes, we discussed to have drones to deliver food, to deliver medicine, to deliver everything, to deliver people from point to airport, from house to house.
And perhaps I can pay that with a crypto asset.
Yes.
Right. Speaking of connections in between technology, but speaking of what you mentioned, education collaborations in the future, right? If you're looking at this partnership, right, there is good to have knowledge and need to have knowledge, right? And is there a career to be made in this decade? And this is my final question. I mean, of course, there are people who may be joining because their institutions send them to train. For example, there are people who may be having opportunity, from the private sector, but could some of them using that information to build for them then a career in consultancy?
Being an expert in a pervasively used technology is generally a good career choice.
Yeah.
Right? So does that mean becoming a trainer is a good opportunity for people who want to do that? Sure. People who want to help develop the technology, understand the technology. Currently, I think the biggest area of kind of crossover in the digital assets, crypto value transfer regulatory space is people helping traditional financial institutions and regulators understand how tools work to solve concrete problems, to deal with allowing the bank to do their asset transfer using crypto type tools. Fine. As these things touch more of the economy, that will expand more broadly. So while initially it was people working on consulting projects and drafting legal opinions around money transmitter type businesses, if you're going to be conveying digital rights to artwork or managing larger whatever property bits of the economy, people are going to end up having to do work to map that onto the existing structures. These things don't operate on their own. I mean, very beginning, you have a blockchain, it runs fine. You can do crypto asset transfer on there. Those assets can have value. You're now doing value transfer, but you still have to connect to existing operations in the real world and understand how to manage that. Blockchain intelligence is about bringing together the blockchain part and the stuff around it that you need to answer real questions. So everyone that's working in building up those collaborations, understanding those interactions, helping to develop tools, procedures, systems, training academies. If you have a more efficient way you think to operate a particular economic interaction, financial, art market, whatever, that's a thing that people should help develop, get
So it's
interested in and
creating
do.
an actual
That's-
ecosystem, right? You can also be an NGO in the system.
Yeah.
You can be a future consultant.
Yeah.
You can be institutional. Speaking of first possible institutional clients, I mean, they should come from where? Law enforcement, financial sector.
Both.
Everybody's welcome,
Law enforcement, financial sector, and why not in the future from private? Because to have a career in blockchain intelligence become common in the future. Because it's not just using in the applying for law. It's to make, like you tell Radu, for consultants. Somebody want to create money using this data. And to using this data, you make this blockchain intelligence in part of the blockchain, because I tell you, it's a lot of business intelligence, another like this. But becoming in the future a common career and using, like you already tell, in NGO, in part of financial, in part of why not in construction, because we have intelligent construction, we have intelligent agriculture. All this sector create data, and in the future maybe create data in the blockchain technology. And for use this data, you must have blockchain intelligence, and you can be a specialist, a good professional in blockchain intelligence using working for the private sector.
So
This is the future.
there is a whole new room for opportunity. Thank you so much for such an engaging conversation, Jonathan, Victor, and see you for our next pod edition next month.
Thank you.